everyone, I'm Ari here with Rachel and we're your hosts for the Merry Writer podcast. This week we're on episode 289 and we're asking, should you write a serial? Before we start, if you enjoy the show, please consider checking out our coffee page. You can follow the page for free as we've got plenty of goodies for all. If you're feeling a little bit generous, a one-off donation will get you access to more treats, or you can even become a Merry Writer for just $2 a month. For this, you get access to all the items in our shop, including some exclusive goodies, as well as access to monthly bonuses, all while helping to support our podcast. If that's not your style, but you still enjoy the podcast, then do please subscribe wherever you're listening if you haven't already, and do drop us a like. Okay, so we're talking about cereals and not the food that you eat at breakfast time or any time. So what is a serial? It's when you take a fictional story and it's broken down into smaller pieces that are uploaded over time. So say you had a novel and you wanted to serialize it, you could literally upload a chapter at a time, or even half a chapter at a time, maybe on like a weekly basis or every few days or anything like that. And it kind of, instead of putting out a full novel, the story gets uploaded on an online platform where people can read the pieces as they're uploaded, and then they have to wait for the next one. So for anyone who grew up in like the 90s, 80s and earlier, you'll remember that when you had to watch TV shows, an episode at a time, and then you had to wait the next week, and then when the series finished you had to wait like months for the next series, whereas now we've got things like Netflix and everything's just like, here's all the series all at once. For those of us who actually like delayed gratification,
I miss those days. Those really were the good days. I remember when WandaVision came out on Disney Plus, they did that. They released one episode every Friday, and my sister gets out of work early on Fridays. So every single Friday at 1 p.m., I would be at the front door waiting for her to come home, and I would be blaring the WandaVision theme song as she pulled into the driveway, and we would immediately just plop ourselves on the couch with lunch and watch WandaVision. And it was such a fun time to relive that moment of our childhood when we would wake up Saturday mornings to watch cartoons. And to go back to, the whole writing, because that's the point of this podcast, when Ari thought of this topic idea and she said, how do you write a serial? I was thinking about the food. I was looking at the word and I was like, that's not how you spell it. And also, why is she calling it a serial when she means series? I genuinely had no idea what she was talking about until I saw her notes. And now I realize that this is how I started off with my writing journey. I used to write on fanfiction.net, which I believe is still open. I think that website still exists. I can probably find my profile somewhere that I'm not going to share because I was 10 years old writing Ninja Turtle fanfiction. But that's how I got my start. I would write chapters and I would upload them either once a day or once a week or once every other day or whatever. And it was just a fun way to gain an audience because that audience has that anticipation of what's going to come next. And obviously there are those moments when you don't update in like a month or two because you just forgot or you got writer's block or whatever. But for the most part, it's a really fun experience to have that ongoing story for your audience.
It's true, it is. And also, yeah, just the fanfic website. Yes, I do remember that. That was a long time ago. That makes me feel old. That really does.
Yeah, and they had a sister site called Fiction Press, I believe. And it was the same thing as fan fiction, but it was all original stories.
Yeah, so it's like they were probably the first ones to ever do it. And yeah, I bet there's people listening to this who don't know there are serialization platforms you can use. So let's talk about serialization. And little notice, neither Rachel and I do serialization. Obviously, Rachel did back in the day, long time ago, but yeah, we don't. But we're still going to talk about it because we talk about a lot of things on this podcast, whether we do them or not. So let's go with it. Okay, so what are some of the benefits of serializing your story? Well, first of all, I think serialization is kind of a high risk, high reward situation. So for that, we're going to talk about like the reward, the pros of this. And I think one of them, now, obviously I'm saying this might not be a pro to everyone, but you technically don't have to have the whole story completed. You can write as you go, or you could have like several pages, several chapters written and be stuck on the next one or not fully ready to finish it. And you can still be uploading them. There isn't that pressure of like when you write a novel, you have to have the whole thing full. when you're writing a novel, you have to have the whole thing finished. It then has to be edited, then it has to be, professionally edited and polished before you can actually put it out into the world. Whereas if you're serializing, I don't think most people who serialize get it edited. I think also your audience is probably a little bit more relaxed about things like editing. I think you still need, obviously, I would still recommend you edit. I still recommend you keep an eye on consistency because that is a big issue. But I think people are a little bit more lenient towards serialization stories rather than a novel that's published. Yeah, so if you don't have the whole story finished, it means you have a little bit more flexibility in where you want to take it as well. It also gives you a greater scope to develop longer stories. You can have longer storylines, you can have subplots that run off and further along. Whereas if you write a novel, you have a very specific, right, I'm going to have this story, this arc, and usually, yes, it might grow as you're writing it, but eventually it gets to a point where you sort of stop and think, right, that's the novel. Whereas a serialization, it could keep going. We've all watched TV series where you sat there thinking, you really should have ended this by now. It doesn't need 20 seasons. But there might be people out there who love that it went 20 plus seasons. And the same might happen with serialization of your story. They might be like, yes, we keep wanting more, keep writing stories. We want to know everything about everything. Obviously, I did mention the fact, that you can be a little bit more loose with your editing. Also, no book cover. No blurb. I mean, I think you do need a little bit of a blurb to sort of catch people's attention, but it's not the same as the actual full-on blurb you get on the back of a book. You're not having to think about formatting. You're not having to think about any of the bigger marketing that you have to do, or the ISBN number and all the printing a paperback, printing a hardback, creating an audio copy, creating an ebook. It's all just uploaded easily from what I've looked at. I should just say that.
I also want to add that another pro to writing serials is that you get feedback in real time. Because you're uploading your story in smaller chunks, a lot of these websites, they have a comments system. So the people who read your book, their stories, can comment on every chapter or scene or whatever you post. And they can tell you what they like and what they don't like about it. And they can give you suggestions if you ask for them. I mean, that's another thing. You can also sort of turn it into a choose your own adventure type of thing and ask what people want to see next. And you can cater your story towards that. As Ari said, you don't have to finish it all in one go. And if you do have it finished or mostly completed, then you can always tweak it down the line too, and you can edit it as you go. I think that's a positive thing about writing serials, is because you're getting that experience without having to work on one type of project for years and years, because there are people like myself that will spend years working on the same novel and trying to polish it to perfection. In this case, serials, it doesn't need to be polished to perfection. You're really just putting your heart and soul out there and saying, I created this thing. What do you guys think about it? And you will create a good following, and people will eat it up like cake. And it's a good experience for your writing. And it's also a good experience for networking with readers.
That's a good point. Yeah, it is. And it's building a fan base piece at a time. So rather than building a whole book, putting it out into the world, and then people going, no, that's crap. You're getting this instant feedback, and you're seeing who likes it, and they're telling you what parts they like. So you can think, oh, wow, I wasn't sure about that part, but now I can create that more. Maybe someone said, oh, I didn't really like the romance. You're thinking, well, I didn't really want to put it in. I can cut that out a bit more and sort of put more action into the story. Or maybe someone will be like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to see about what this happens with this character. And you were thinking, wow, I wasn't even going to address that. Now I can. So that can give you quite a good sense. But it is about building that fan base. That's what this is about. It's getting early fans and then, publishing a novel later.
Right. You're essentially reading your story with the reader, or the reader is reading the book with you. Right? Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Actually, when you said that, I was like, oh, that sounds so cute, actually.
Yeah, it's nice. And because my sister, she still writes serials. She's on Archive of Our Own, I believe it's called. And she still does original work and fan fiction on there. And that was mostly because we both used to be on Quizilla. I just remembered Quizilla being a thing. Did you know about Quizilla?
It rings a very small bell, but like a really small bell. So I've heard of it, but I don't know much about it.
Oh, Quizilla was such a fun website where it was similar to like BuzzFeed quizzes. You could go on Quizilla and you could write serials and people could do like the multiple choice of what they wanted to happen next, or they could kind of be they could kind of be the main character themselves. So you could write second point of view stories using Quizilla. And it was such a fun way to create choose your own adventures. And I kind of forgot about it until just now. And man, I miss Quizilla. Quizilla was a wonderful website because I used to write choose your own adventures. My sister used to write them, and now she kind of catered archive of our own so that she can write choose your own adventures on there as well. Ah, man, I miss Quizilla. You're bringing up a lot of memories and feelings for me right now, Ari, and I kind of miss those days, and you're making me feel sad about it. Bittersweet, not sad. Bittersweet.
The nostalgia.
Yeah, nostalgic.
But no, yeah, exactly. It's like it's weird. It's like this thing sort of thing has been around for a while, but it kind of sort of fell away. But I think it's starting to come back a little bit more now. It doesn't even have to be this kind of like random, yes, I'm just going to serialize a story and never really think about it. I mean, the popular one that I think most people know about is Andy Weir, who wrote The Martian. He didn't just publish that. That was serialized. He serialized that on his blog. And apparently people were reading it and getting so excited about it, they were like throwing money at him and talking about it, going like, you need to publish this. And I might be wrong. I might need to check this. I apologize if I'm getting it wrong. I thought when I read about that, when The Martian came out, that people actually donated to him and helped him publish it. And obviously, we know what happened with that. It became a big blockbuster movie. Absolutely great. If you haven't seen it, you should watch it. It's brilliant. I actually have the book that I haven't read yet. I've just remembered that I have that book. But yeah, so it can even start you off small and then sort of push you up. Now, I'm not saying, yes, you might hit big and people might be going, oh my God, this is the best book ever. Here's all our money. Go publish it. But if you get a big enough fan base, it might help you feel more confident to publish the story once it's finished, if you decide to finish it. Or maybe take part of the story and turn it into a novel as well. There's so many things you can do with it. So those are some benefits to serializing a story.
Actually, now that you mention it, there are agents out there who do look at these websites and these serialized fiction. And if they have a big enough fan base, they have a lot of readers, a lot of views, and mostly positive feedback, the agents will reach out. I know, oh gosh, I forget the author's name. It's Natasha something. She wrote The Cabin and a bunch of other novels. She was huge on Wattpad. And The Cabin, I think, I could be wrong. I believe The Cabin was her first story on Wattpad. And it was so popular that an agent picked her up. And now her books are at my Barnes & Noble. So I'm not saying it's easy, but it could happen.
And it was Natasha Preston?
Ah, I was going to say Prescott. So thank you for looking that up.
So close. So close. But yeah, that's it. It's like, it's weird. I don't know if we've talked about this. I think we might have mentioned it on another podcast. I'm just going to blurt it out now. There's a lot more where it's harder to get like agents and published, and yet a lot of agents are apparently like stalking, and I said in the nice way, not the scary way. So self-published authors, serialized authors, because if you're self-published and you're doing well and getting a big fan base and you're getting lots of audience and lots of readers, you're more likely to get an agent reaching out than it is reaching to the agent going, hey, read that book, read my book. Because it's almost like they're waiting, a lot of them seem to be waiting for you to prove that you're a good writer by getting your own audience. And it used to be, oh, you used to get follows on Instagram and people like it. Now it's like, no, you need to have a book out and it needs to be doing well and your marketing needs to be on point, and they're doing it. So it doesn't surprise me that agents are sort of trolling through these sorts of platforms looking for a serialized work, especially after things like Natasha Preston, Andy Weir. I can see them going like they're looking for the next big name that they can, turn into a book, turn into a movie. Who knows? Okay, so we've talked about some benefits. So let's talk about some cons, because there's always cons. Rachel mentioned about the getting real-time feedback, which can be really good. It can also be really bad, because you might end up feeling that you need to change the story. So if you're, depending on how you're writing your serialization, or if you have written a full story and you're just like literally editing and uploading it, you might find that people are saying they want this character to be the main character, or they don't like this bad guy, or maybe they don't like this side character, or they really hope that this happens in the plot. And I mean, obviously you can, it's your story, you can push through, but it's not always easy when there's like several people, especially if there's the majority are saying this. And yes, you could say, well, if that many people want it to be different, maybe it should be different. But also it could be that those people are just not the right audience for you. And if you really want to tell your story the way you want to tell it, you should stick to it. However, life being the way it is, it's not always easy for everyone. And you can end up feeling like you're having to change characters or plot lines because of the feedback. And that can be difficult. It can be difficult because you don't want to do it. It can be difficult because then it changes the dynamic of the story and you're having to think differently. Yes, it might make it better, but it might not. And the problem is there will always be some readers who want you to do one way and some readers who want you to do another way. There's always that kind of divide between people. There'll be people who are like, oh my gosh, I wish you had a romance plot. And then other people going, oh my God, why did you have to have a romance plot? Just the way it is. So you can't cater to everyone. And if you start trying to cater to people, it's like, when do you draw the line not to? And if you don't cater to people, are you going to lose followers and readers and people who donate money towards the story? Because I think a lot of the platforms they do have like a donation thing where you might get a few pages for free, and then you have to either buy tokens or you can pay to read them. And obviously, we always say like it's better if you don't write for the money and everything, but if it's helping you to then move towards being maybe a published author, actually creating full novels, it can be hard when suddenly people are withdrawing the money from you that you were getting. So that's something you have to think about. So obviously that can be a bit of a difficult one.
The other thing is with the feedback, and I don't know how times have changed, but when I was on these platforms many years ago, the majority, and maybe it was just because of, the little cluster of writers I was in because I was younger, but I feel like on many of these platforms, a lot of the authors are on the younger side or they're brand new to writing. So you need to keep in mind that when you're getting feedback from these other writers, it's not always going to be useful for you. And I mean, that's the same for feedback when it comes to, getting your novel beta read and things like that. But you got to keep in mind that in the end, it is still your story. And if you want to use their suggestions, you can. If you don't, you don't have to. And just keep in mind that you're not going to be able to please everybody. Just want to say that, even though we've said it many times on the podcast.
That's actually a really good point, that not everyone's advice is good for you. And obviously, if you're taking it from like new authors, and we're not saying new authors or new writers don't share good advice. I think we actually have a podcast episode about what new writers can teach us. But yeah, it's like catering to everybody. It could mean that you're doing some serious disservice to your own self and your own story. Definitely something to think about. The other point, the other con is readers are not always that forgiving if you fail to upload on time. I think with most serialization, it's like the podcast. We upload every Wednesday at a certain time without fail. And shockingly, we have done this for 5 years without missing a day. And the reason we do that is because we massively record early in advance, because there are times when we would have definitely missed it if we had to record, the week before. So yeah. Now, I think most people are pretty lenient. I say that with a hope that humanity is actually not as terrible as I think it is. But there will always be people who aren't, who don't like that you take time, especially if something happens. It could be something as tragic as a death in the family. It could be as simple as you lose your internet. It could be just that something came up, something simple. Especially if it happens over a set of weeks and you can't put it up. Or, as we've talked about, if you didn't finish your story and you were writing as you were going, maybe you had a few chapters prepared. If you then hit writer's block, or you start struggling with maybe your mental health and you struggle to make the next story, it can affect you, because the readers are not always going to be forgiving, and they will let you know in the comments, and they will blast you about that on other platforms. Again, not all readers. There's a lot of great readers who are very, very supportive. There are also a lot of people who are technically just shitheads, who will just make your life a misery because they are expecting something, and when you don't do it for whatever reason, they'll come at you. That's an issue. So, having a plan to try and make sure you always hit the target, great. Having thicker skin in case you don't and you get bad comments. Same with feedback, really, because you'll get some positive feedback, you'll get some negative feedback. As Rachel said, can't please everyone. And if you get negative feedback, you've got to be ready to sort of take it. Like, at least when you publish a book, most people, unless it's a do not finish, will get through the whole book and then put their thoughts down in a review. If you're doing serialization, it might be people making complaints and huffing about something. And it's like, if you just finish reading the rest of the story, you don't need to worry about it because it'll get explained. Be prepared for that. I have seen that sort of thing.
The ironic thing is, I think in a weird way, that con is also a pro because, as we mentioned earlier, it's writing serials is good experience for your writing and gaining an audience and things like that. But it also helps you develop that thick skin so that when you do inevitably publish your first novel and that first 1-star or 2-star review comes in, it's still going to sting and bother you, but hopefully not as bad.
Exactly. It happens to the best. You know, every writer that you love has got 1 star. I guarantee it. But yeah, I don't know if I'd like it. Like if you uploaded something like once a week and every week someone was leaving like a shitty comment, I think that would be, you'd need to really toughen up for that, because I can see that being like wearing you down, you know, like death of 1,000 cuts kind of feeling. However, we're going to go to our next con, which might not be a con. And we're generalizing. I'll caveat this by saying we're generalizing from when we've been looking at some of these platforms that have these stories. It's pretty good if you write spicy werewolf stories, because they seem to do big on these platforms. Like every platform I've been on that's had serials that I've looked at, 90% of like the front page that shows you like, all the different stories seems to be werewolf related or shifter related. Usually, and if it's shifter, it's like dragon shifter or something big. You know, it's not like a sidestep of the werewolf. It's werewolf shifter or something hugely different, and that's it. And you read the little description, and I guarantee there's spiciness. There's usually spice. It might take a bit of time, it might be slow burn spice, but there's spice coming. So if you are a big spicy werewolf fan, you know, if that is your jam, then you might do brilliantly. Also, you've obviously got a lot of competition. Now, it might just be that a lot of readers really, really get their jollies reading werewolf spice. And again, no judgment ever. You do you. So obviously, the more readers who are interested in that, the more that's going to appear on the front cover. There might be other stories that aren't about spicy werewolves. And if that's the case, it might mean that your story gets lost in the shuffle, or it might be you're more likely to find your core set of readers, because people who aren't into the spicy werewolves and are into whatever you're writing, they hopefully will find you. Hopefully. And then you'll get like a more core readers. I don't know. Or maybe the spicy werewolf readers will find you and they'll be really upset that nobody has shifted and started getting spicy.
How many times can we say spicy werewolf in this episode?
We're going to do a drinking game.
Oh, God.
But with like orange juice, because we don't want to encourage drinking. But at the same time, it's like every time I said spicy, you have to take a drink.
I think, you know, it's funny what you said a minute ago, that, yeah, obviously, if you're really into spicy werewolves, then this might not be a con for you. However, the competition itself could be a con, because as Ari said, if you write that type of stuff and a whole slew of readers might flock to you, but what is going to make your spicy werewolf story stand out from all the other spicy werewolf stories? And yes, I realize you can say that about every novel that's on the shelves right now in your bookstore, but it's just something else that you got to think about, even though it's a serial, even though it's not a published novel and that it's just the internet. You still need to make sure that your writing stands out from everything else. And I wouldn't necessarily say that's a con, because that's just the art and the process of writing, but it's still something to think about.
That is a good point, yeah. Because it's like you always have to think about like competition and everything. And yes, there's readers for everything. And if somebody likes reading about spicy werewolves, then they might want to devour lots of that content and that. So you might just have a built-in fan base ready for you. But yeah, actually, I've just realized something. I'm going to go back up to one of my other points where I said one of the benefits is you don't need a book cover. And I realized you do need a cover, because on your serialization, you do need a cover. Now, the only thing is, if you serialized your series, you only often need one cover because the story just carries on and on and on. But yes, I just realized I was like, oh, you don't need a book cover. It's like, yes, you do. You need some visual to get people's attention. And we know that because when we were looking at these, it was like wolf, 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 wolf. Half naked man with a wolf behind him. There was lots of that too.
With the occasional vampire.
Exactly. See, I write vampires and shifters and gargoyles and everything, but it's just like they're not like heavy, spicy stuff. There's like I'm a slow burn for everything. It's like you got to read like 6 books before you get anything. That's what I write. So I would be terrible at that because while I do have stories that have werewolf shifters in. To be fair, I have other shifters and they're not all like bigger, scarier things. And I have my other preternatural creatures. I just don't have enough spicy in there to sort of dominate the platform like everybody else is doing, and I'm just not doing that. So.
Well, that's just it. It's very easy to get lost in the shuffle depending on what platform you choose to write your serial on, which we'll talk about platforms in a minute. But I do want to touch upon that I did try writing serials on one of these platforms years ago. I don't even know when. It was a long, long time ago. But then there was an uptick in romance stories, and I ended up getting completely lost in the shuffle because I don't write romance. And then erotica started coming on the rise, and I ended up just leaving the platform altogether because if I didn't write romance or erotica, then I just wasn't seen. And the platform didn't push my stories at all. And it's a give or take. You gotta do trial and error with all these different platforms, play around with what you like to write. And if you want to try to write something new, you can do that too. But for the most part, it's a lot of, there's more thinking involved than you would think.
Actually, that leads me to an extra point that probably goes on the benefits, not the cons, but we're just bouncing around, just go with it. Say you write something specific that you like. There's nothing saying that if you wanted to write serials, you could create another pen name and write under that and do something different. There's a lot of people who write non-spice, like very clean writing, but if they wanted to get their groove on, there's nothing saying they couldn't, instead of publishing books, they could literally create a new pen name and write stories with spice, or write romance, or write something else, and try a genre off your normal brand on something else and see how it works. Get a bit of a taste test on one of these platforms.
Yeah, no, that's interesting because I don't know if these platforms, I assume most, if not all of these platforms are free accounts. So yeah, really, what's stopping you from making a second account? And unless there's something in their terms and conditions that only allows you to have one account for some reason, but yeah, no, that's a good point. Yeah, trial and error. Try writing different things. It's good practice for you. There's no harm in it.
Exactly. And there's so many platforms you could write, clean on one and spicy on another and shifters on another and spicy shifters on another. It's like, you could literally dominate everything just on each different one. Okay, before we get to platforms, we're going to talk about one other thing. Now, this isn't, I've not read that this is a big thing, but honestly, it seems to be everywhere anyway, so I'm just going to mention it. Theft and piracy. We already know that people are out there stealing books, putting books on piracy sites, literally stealing ebooks and rewriting them in a way. And I don't want to talk about if they use AI nowadays, and then putting those stories up under their own name, especially with something like that was a serialization and it's on a platform. It's not the same as a book that you've printed and an ISBN number and got the copyright page and everything like that. You put it on a serialization, especially if you are a smaller creator and you haven't maybe got a big following. I can imagine it could be a possibility that someone could come along and go, oh, that's a good story. I'm going to sort of take some of this and I'm going to make my own story, maybe as a full book, whatever. Maybe they write a different ending because you're still writing yours, whatever. It could happen. Not saying it does. I guarantee someone has had something stolen because unfortunately it happens to, it just happens. It's a thing in the world that sadly, some people like to steal other people's work. I mean, there was a case, I think we mentioned it ages ago, where some author, she wrote a set of books and then some other person took the stories and rewrote them and put spicy scenes in them. And I think she wasn't a massive author, the original, but I think she had a pretty decent following. And then one of her followers found the book and was like, this is almost like your book, but almost like word for word almost, but with spicy scenes and like different character names and that. And it's like, they were still doing that against someone who had a decent following. So it can happen to anybody. So that's just something you might want to think about. Maybe don't put your best favorite a story up there. Maybe start with something smaller or whatever. But yeah, just a thought. So with that, we're going to go to platform. Wow, are there a lot? And we have probably not even caught all of them. We wrote a few down, that ones we knew, and then we found some other ones. But I mean, even Rachel mentioned, what was it, archive of our own and things like that. So yeah, so we're just going to run through a few of them. I think the one that most people know is Wattpad. And I'm going to quickly just jump in. A lot of these I have never used. I have been on them, I've looked at them, I've read them, but I haven't used them. Wattpad is one of these, but I believe it's quite a popular one. I think a lot of the writers I know have Wattpad for something, even if it's just like a, to put like a short story up or anything, but you can serialize on Wattpad. So I think that's a pretty common one. There's also Ream, REAM, which started in 2020, and that is a very much for authors, it's for full-on stories, not like smaller things. You can serialize on something like Patreon or Ko-fi, or even your own blog, things like that, where again, it's like there's the tiered money thing where you can kind of control collections of stories that you put up. There is one I know which is called, I'm going to pronounce this wrong, I know I am, Galate, so it's GALATEA. Now that is a reader app where the story is serialized. And to get onto that as a writer, you have to use their sister site called Inkit, which is INKITT. Because I went on Galate and I was reading some of the stories, and that was one of those things where you've got like it wasn't even a chapter, it was like a scene, and then you couldn't read the next one until the next day. Now, I was on the free account. If you were paid, if you had like tokens, you might have been able to get like extra views. You may be able to get it open sooner, but I had to wait 24 hours to read the next one. That one is specific was really cool because the one I was reading was very immersive. It actually had sound effects. So if there was a babbling brook, you would hear the babbling brook. If the character got a text message, it bleeped like a text message, which was annoying because every time it bleeped, I kept looking at my phone. But it was quite interesting having this kind of like sound effects. Now, I don't know how that is. I don't know if you have to then build your own sound effects. As you can tell, we've done very little research onto the depth of these platforms. But hey, you know what? That can't do everything for you. You got to go and do some of it. But yeah, that was an interesting one. Definitely. I did like the immersiveness. After a while, it got on my nerves and I turned it off. But for most of it, I think it was mainly the bleeping of the phone. I just got annoyed about that. But when it was like somebody knocking on the door with the wind rustling and you heard that, it was quite nice. It was quite nice. I don't know why it was.
Yeah, it sounds like it's just like a fiction podcast.
Yeah, a bit like that, yeah.
Next, we have Substack, which, we haven't really used at all. And I mean, Substack is used for newsletters a lot of the time, but if you wanted to use it as serialized fiction, absolutely go ahead and do that. And another one is Radish, which is similar to Wattpad and those types of apps. Radish, and I learned this the hard way because I heard about it a couple of months ago and I downloaded it. And apparently Radish seems to be more so for spicy stories specifically. There was a lot of erotica. So if you're into that stuff, you would probably love Radish. Just saying.
I like the fact that there is a platform specifically that seems to be for spice, and yet a lot of the others still also have a lot of spice. It's like it's just a smorgasbord of spice.
It's the trends. Romance is never going to die. Let's just be real here. I don't care if you love it or hate it. It's never like romance and erotica, like they're just currently trending right now, and they've been trending for a long, long time, it feels like.
I get that. I will stand up a little bit for romance. Romance doesn't automatically mean spice. It could still be in clean romance or just behind closed doors blackout. It's this constant, everyone has to up the ante with the spicy level. And again, we're not shaming. We did an article about spicy. We'll add that to the description. But yeah, it does get to a point where it feels like the next author is always trying to up the ante on spice level. And it's like, oh, wow. It's like the gymnastics the characters are doing starts to get a little bit like, ugh.
Yeah. No, I didn't mean to group romance into like one thing, but it's just, I feel like the romance genre itself, I mean, I even noticed it at my local Barnes and Noble. The shelving space for the romance section is getting bigger and bigger, and they're moving it more, like they're having multiple shelves for it. And then there are other genres that the books are shrinking, and it's actually kind of sad to see. And again, no hate to romance authors or romance readers, whether it's clean or not. I just mean it's kind of sad to see how some genres are actually tapering off because other genres are getting so big and they're just trending so much that it's kind of pushing others to the side. And again, not a bad thing, but as somebody who prefers, cozy mysteries over romance, and I say that because cozy mysteries is one of the genres that's shrinking. It used to be on 2 shelves and now it's on like 7 shelves on one section. And it's kind of sad to see every week I go and it's like there's less and less books.
I've noticed that like the cozy genre is still around, but it has shifted because cozy mystery was the only time I ever heard cozy was cozy mystery.
Mm-hmm.
But now it does seem to be cozy fantasy.
Yes.
Seems to be the bigger one. And even I like cozy mystery, so it kind of annoys me. Yeah, and I love fantasy, but sometimes you want something a bit different. But yeah, cozy fantasy is sort of taken over from cozy mystery, and it's like we don't want to lose any of these. And there's always a reader for you. So if you write cozy mystery, if you write non-romance, don't stop writing just because romantasy is taking over everything. You don't have to write fantasy, you don't have to write romance, you don't have to write cozy fantasy. Write whatever you want because there will always be readers for you. Seriously.
No, exactly. And again, we're not hating on any authors or readers of any of these genres. It's just something that we've noticed. And me personally, I am a little salty about it because I do like romance to a certain extent, but I'm not a romance reader. So, I am a little salty about it.
Understandable. I can understand that. It is annoying when you see like one genre take over places and you get less and less. And then even if there's a lot of writers for those things that you like, if they're not getting shown because the algorithm doesn't like them because everyone's going to romantasy, it's hard to kind of get through and find what you want. So it's a bit sad. We have got a few others that are not as well known as I think the ones we've talked about, and these are Royal Road, Dream, Moonquill, and Web Novel. I've heard of web comics, webtoons. I never heard of web novel. Rachel just mentioned it. Now we don't know anything about these ones. I'd heard of Royal Road, but I haven't heard of Dream and Moonquill. So, but what we will do is we'll put links down for you to go and have a look and see. Like with any platform, if you're thinking about going on it, always go and check yourself. Go and have a look at their FAQs, their terms and conditions, see if it works for your story. Look at what's already on there because we've talked about it. Like if you're going and going, oh yeah, I'll go on to Radish, and like you're trying to write something clean, that ain't gonna work. And if you're going on other ones and it's full of spicy werewolves and you're not writing spicy werewolves, you might get lost. So have a look to see what they've got, see how many audience members are even on there, and have a think about what works best for you if you want to serialize your story. But also, you can do it on your own blog. Obviously, there's no paywall on most people's blogs, as there are on a lot of these. You can put a paywall up so that you can see how many people are interested enough to put money where their mouth is and say, yes, I want to read this. But if you really wanted to, you could just do a serialization on your blog, on your website, something like that.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier that we don't do serialized fiction, but I do. That's my short story Sunday.
It is, but is it serialized? Because I thought serialized was like one long continuous story, whereas yours are separate stories. It would have to be like I thought a serialization was where one story went into the next story.
Back in the day, I just did flash fiction once a week, but now every month is a new short story. So it's like part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4. Well, it's not every month. It's only a couple of months of the year now. But yeah, no, you just made me think of that because I'm like, wait, I technically do still do serialized fiction. Just didn't realize it.
Yeah. So is that on the coffee that you do that, or is it on your blog?
That's on my blog. My coffee page, I post like a full short story once a month for my Caffeinated Club members.
Yeah, so you could also use coffee if you wanted, and you could
Yes.
put that behind a tiered paywall if you want to do that, or you could just use it like that. So even if you don't have a website, you can have a coffee page and do that. But
yeah, you can do whatever you want.
Okay, let's talk about our thoughts about this. Rachel's only just remembered that she does serialization, and I do not do serialization. So let's listen to what we have to say about it. I have thought about it. I'll be honest, I have thought about it, especially because I am a big writer. I can't write small stories. I like big, long stories, arcs, many characters. So serialization might actually be quite good for me. But also, I definitely would not be able to stick to a time frame and like upload regularly. I would definitely mess that up and then get like ripped apart because I wasn't uploading on time. I only manage the podcast because Rachel is my accountability buddy who stops me from, messing it up. Seriously.
If I don't mess it up first.
Yes. We're so good like that. We either both mess it up or we're on point for each other. Great. So I think if I wanted to do that, I would definitely do some looking up the best sort of platform that would work for my type of story. And I would probably want to have the whole story completed before I started uploading. That way I wouldn't mess anything up. I wouldn't get hit with writer's block or a lack of motivation, or if my mental health took an absolute dive, I wouldn't be like wallowing for months on end before the next story came up. And by that time, everyone hated me. I don't need that. My anxiety tells me everyone hates me anyway. I don't need extra proof in comments. So yeah, it's kind of one of those things that's on the back of my mind, maybe. But honestly, I have enough full novels I need to get done without thinking about a serialization.
But if you want to start gaining an audience now, or like boost your audience now, then writing serialized fiction would be a good idea. And here's the other thing that I could have mentioned earlier, but I didn't think of it until now. It is a good idea to write the whole thing at once so that you can stay consistent with your uploads and things like that. I mean, that's what I do for my short story Sunday. I don't write part one of a short story and then write the next part the following week, because no, I will forget. So I write the entire short story and then I find good stopping points to chop it into 4 or 5 bits. However, I have seen people write in like seasons, if you will. So they will break up their stories into parts and they will post a chapter a week for, I don't know, 2 months. And then they'll leave it at a cliffhanger. And then they'll say, oh, we'll see you in 2 months, or we'll see you in a month, or we'll see you on this day. And that allows the readers to anticipate for like a month or two for the start of the next part or next season or whatever. So that also allows the writer to write the first part, and then they have a break and they can go through their comments and their feedback, and they can take their time writing the next part and scheduling those parts for later, and rinse and repeat. So you don't have to write it all at once. You don't have to write a new chapter every single week. You don't have to be consistent with it in, a weird way. Obviously, you want to be consistent with your uploads, but you don't need to be consistent with the writing, because obviously, yeah, life does get in the way. Things happen, mental health breakdowns happen. So there's a lot of different ways you can go about it, and you can approach it differently and do what's best for you. And I can't remember what I did, because I did used to be on Wattpad back in the day. That's what I was explaining earlier when I said that I kind of got lost in the shuffle when romance and erotica ended up being on the rise. But I used to write novellas on there, and I would write them all at once, and then I would post each chapter one by one. I didn't want to just upload as I wrote, because I knew I would forget, or I would just get bored of it or tired or whatever. As Ari said, the podcast is the most consistent thing I've done in my entire life. And I think it's because I do it with Ari. If I started this podcast on my own, you bet your ass it would have ended probably 6 months after it started, because I don't follow through with a lot of things, or my ADHD is like, let's look at that new shiny toy. Let's forget the podcast. That said, Ari said that she was thinking about it. Do I smell a new writing challenge? Maybe.
Or maybe not, because that's another thing to think about.
I'm just saying. I mean, we have a bunch of writing challenges lined up through like 2026 at this point, because of you, actually, because you kept having all these ideas. But hey, who's stopping us from just picking a platform and writing a little something something and see what happens?
Are we spicy wolfing it?
I'm not. You're more than welcome to.
That's not a challenge then. If you're not going to make spicy werewolves, spicy dragons, dragon werewolves.
All right, dragons,
shifters, spicy dragon shifters, maybe.
Hell, I'll write werewolves. I'll try to do that. I'm just not doing spicy, because nobody would want to read that.
Making more work for us with another challenge. And yes, I appreciate I started this whole thing. I know.
I'm just saying. Everybody in the comments, let us know if that's something you would like us to do. Because then we could do a podcast episode of like our, a review, if you will, of whatever platform we choose. Kind of like what we did with All Author.
That's not a bad idea. Or we could both take different platforms, so we'd have two different ones to talk about.
And we can compare. See?
Oh my gosh.
Everybody let us know. Ari's giving me a look, but everybody let us know in the comments if that's something you'd want us to do. Probably wouldn't be until like 2028 at this point, but just saying.
Yeah, exactly. It's like hard enough writing a freaking novel. But I did like that idea of like seasons, like breaking it up. And also you take like say you took 2 months writing, uploading once a week, and then 2 months off before your next season. That's actually really cool because it's not like you'd stop people. You could use that to be like, hey, see you in 2 months. But if you want more information or behind the scenes, follow my newsletter, follow my Instagram, join me on Patreon or something like that. So you could build up more anticipation, get more people following you in different ways, throw out some little bonuses. And I don't know. I'm thinking about it like I'm going to do it, and I don't want to do it.
Ari Rachel story collaboration incoming. You write the first part?
Trying to get my book finished, and you keep adding things.
No, listen, we could. You write the first part, and then we say, we'll see you in 2 months while I write the next part.
Yes. Rachel, you are killing me. I swear, you are killing me. I'm going to end this.
I'm having a great time.
I bet you are. You can write serialization. I can't even write one novel. It's a freaking trilogy, and it keeps getting bigger. And you're sat there putting out short stories and serialization because it's easier for you because you have that sort of ability to do short stories and long stories. And I only seem to be able to do long stories. So, of course, you're enjoying yourself. It would be more stress for me. I'm going to end this episode before Rachel comes up with any more bright ideas. Okay, so that's our thoughts on serialized stories. I hope you enjoyed it. It was more than we expected. This is a way longer episode. Before we leave, if you want to learn more about us, the podcast, or opportunities to be a guest on the show, don't forget to check out our website at themerrywriterpodcast.podbean.com. Now we'll turn it over to you guys. Do you write serials? Have you ever considered writing a serial? And if you do write them, tell us what platform you're on and what you thought about it. We'd like to know. Put it in the comments. Remember, we do release new episodes every Wednesday. Next week, we're discussing accountability buddies. Say that 3 times fast. Accountability buddies. I can't remember. To ensure you don't miss it, hit the subscribe button on your way out. And as always, thanks for listening to the ramblings of the Merry Writer Podcast. We will see you next week. This podcast is brought to you by Another New Notebook. Just because. The music titled Inspired is by Kevin MacLeod, licensed under Creative Commons 4.0.